So I'll start with the call to order and the statement. Are we supposed to be reading our mission statement at the beginning of each meeting?
No, I keep forgetting to put that on. It's just a statement saying, hey, this is a virtual meeting and
Okay.
remember to unmute yourself and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, just the sort of yeah, just administrative stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, we're having a virtual meeting and please mute.
Yes. Good work.
Okay, so can we do the roll call for it's everyone, right? But let's start with the board members. So I guess I'll start. Shreya Jimenez here, present. Jim, do you want to go next? Are you on? Or how about?
Oop, I'm here.
Who else do we have here? Wait, do we have quorum? I'm just looking now. Olga, can you?
I'm here, Olga Flores.
And that's.
Yeah, and this is Betty. I'm here, but I'm in my car right now. This is LHC. I come up as LHC.
Okay. Okay, great. And we do have quorum, right, with myself, Jim, and Olga, and that's okay, great. So, and then everyone else, can you please introduce yourselves?
Maggie Amado Tellez with the Pima County Community Land Trust.
Mark Clark, Pima Council on Aging.
Marcos Ismael, Pima County.
Dan Clockey with Gorman and Company. I'm sitting in for Sal Schwein.
David Wool, Newport SW, sitting in for David Wool, Newport SW.
Megan Headings, Family Housing Resources.
This is Jason Heisey with the Heisey Group.
Okay, I think that's everyone. Great. Let's go on to the next item. We have here. Okay, so the next topic was to talk about the subcommittee rules from the clerk's office. So Anne, you started to give an update about that, but can you go ahead and fill it everyone in?
Yeah, so trying to get clarity to help all the subcommittees. I had several exchanges with the clerk's office, and the bottom line right now is they're saying that no, there can't be ex officio members cannot vote on subcommittees, and that guests and members of the public cannot vote on subcommittees. I tried to understand that better. They indicated it's because of the founding ordinance. So I asked if you could, well, two things. The group still has to create bylaws. So I asked if in your bylaws you could dictate how you wanted subcommittees to function, and if they could ask, if you all could ask mayor and council to change the founding ordinance, if that's something you feel strongly about. I never heard back on that last answer on changing the founding ordinance, but I did get a commitment that somebody from the clerk's office will attend the December full committee meeting to have this discussion, and hopefully you all can help me peel back those layers and find out what is and isn't possible based on the interest of the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Anne. Is there any other questions on that?
Oh, the one thing I will say is, even though technically it's up to you all, you can still have members, external members discuss and be a part of the group and essentially be a full-fledged committee member, just technically in terms of motions can't vote.
Yeah, I feel like if people are showing up regularly, I mean, I feel they should, at a minimum be allowed to vote. That's my personal feeling about it, but I don't know if anyone else I don't, and if it's too difficult to change, I mean, our hands are kind of tied.
Not sure how much stuff we're gonna really have to vote on. I think this is, committee where we're trying to come up with ideas and share ideas. So that's my 2 cents. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of voting occurring.
Okay, well, thank you all. Can we move on to the next item? All right. So the next agenda item here is, I think this is the meat of, call to the audience. It doesn't look like we have anybody. So we'll move on to the next item, which is, I think, the meat of our discussion. Okay, great. So the state QAP. So Jim, I'm probably gonna let you kind of steer this because you have been the most, involved, and I think understand this also at, the political and policy level the best. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I need to pull up the QAP. Give me a second here. I didn't know I was gonna be doing this. What is the objective of this?
Well, I'm hoping that we can, I think we wanted to weigh in on the QAP as far as, if there's anything we can do, if we need to draft a letter asking for.
Too late.
Yeah,
Too late?
I think that should
Way too late.
Yeah, that ship has sailed.
Has it? I
Yeah,
thought we had it.
It's the final draft is supposed to come out by the end of this week.
Oh, okay.
I think the only thing that we can really do at this point, which we've been talking about, is make sure that the city is doing everything that we can do to get as many awards as possible within Tucson. So there are some point categories, and I'm looking it up now. In terms of creating a strategic plan, which I know Ann has been working on. And then participation from the city. So if the city donates more than a certain amount to the project, then there's additional points. Dave and Jason, what am I forgetting?
I think the.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, sorry, Dave. Do you
No,
want
you
to?
go.
Okay. I would think some of the highlights that the city could maybe not change the QAP at this point, but one of the topics we talked about last time was the exclusion of the zip codes. And basically, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, David, Ruby said that those were all the zip codes that won awards in the last 10 years, or was it 2 years?
I haven't actually added it up, but it is zip codes that have been unrepresented in the past, in the recent past. And now how many years that is, I don't know. But the idea is to try and give a boost, and it's 10 points. So it's a pretty meaningful boost.
It's significant. Yeah, it's a 5%. Yeah.
So it's an attempt to give a bump to zip codes that have been that have not had credits over in the recent past. I mean, the other things the city can do, like Jim said, funding. There's a certain amount of funding and project-based rental assistance. If there are enough units that have project-based vouchers, then there are points for that. And then the revitalization areas. It's not just the strategic housing. It's not just like a plan. It's not a citywide plan. It has to be a neighborhood-based. There you go. It has to be neighborhood-based, and it has to be voted on and approved by mayor and council. So if there's something that's not underway yet.
Wouldn't the I think the issue with the zip codes is that the choice neighborhood area with that Stone Oracle corridor, 85701 and 85705 are both included to be excluded.
Right.
I think that's an issue for
But
this.
they certainly within the choice neighborhoods boundaries, that's going to certainly qualify as a redevelopment area. So I think that's 20 or 25 points. So I think that more than makes up for the not getting the 10 points. I mean, they're basically two different things. The zip code one is to try and redress a lack of fair distribution, if you will. And the neighborhood revitalization area, which the 05, or at least that part which is in the choice neighborhoods area, would certainly qualify for.
Well, I also think that I think the IID area would qualify.
I think you're right.
As a CRP. So if you were in one of the, even in one of the tertiary IID zones, I think you would qualify. But again, I think that the winners, I think the smart guys and gals going in this year are going to be tinkering on 180. And I think they're going to be able to piece together applications because they're obviously, as we all know, really good at it. And there's a little more land, obviously a lot more opportunities in Phoenix to fit a project into all these categories. The project-based Section 8 is important, but it only gets you 20 out of 30. If somebody just opts to put 10% of their units into the 811 pool for the state, they get 30 points. And all you need to do is make that unit available for 60 days after certificate of occupancy. And then you can lease it to whoever you want the way it's currently written. So I think everybody in Phoenix and everybody, anybody who wants to win this year is going to check the 30-point box. They're going to do the 811.
Which one category is that?
You're not going to mess around. Every project this year is going to take the 10% of the unit.
Keep going. No, the other way, Jim. Other way.
Up.
Stop.
It's the CRP area. It's right after.
There it is. There it is. Supportive housing. Right there. Right
So
there.
if you look at that top section, Section 811 participation, just count on that happening.
You bet.
And then go down here, you can see 60 days after C of O. You only have to make the unit available for 60 days after C of O. If you don't fill it with one of their 811s, 60 days after C of O, you fill it with whoever you want. That's a no-brainer.
Jason, getting a HUD 811, isn't that a competitive process?
No, I think these are units the state has, isn't it, David? That
Yes.
they're gonna place for you.
First paragraph. If you look at the first paragraph, 811 ADOH will award 30 points based on the applicant committing to accept the contract, blah, blah, blah. The contract will be between the ownership entity and ADOH.
You don't need to win anything.
811.
Jim, the state's been trying to place 811 tenants in several of our projects right now. I mean, it seems to me that they have a pool of tenants that they're trying to get into units.
Right?
Huh?
Those are special needs.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you look at the language on the rental assistance side, they talk about the project-based Section 8 vouchers, but they also talk about rapid rehousing access, emergency housing vouchers. Behavioral health companies have several of those available. But again, you're going to leave 10 points on the table if you go to project-based Section 8 vouchers. That's not going to be the determining factor.
Well, if you do 30% of your units, you get all 30 points, but that's a lot more units than the 10% you have to do for the 811. Everybody's going to do the 811.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, I mean, and let's be honest, and I'm sorry, city people, close your ears if you don't want to hear this. But the way PBV works, and it can take a lot more than 60 days to get a PBV tenant in, it can be a nightmare. So that's another reason to do the 811.
Is that something that the city has input on?
Oh, is which?
What do you mean?
811 is this is nothing that the city of Tucson has any control over, correct?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So that's going to happen regardless. So rental assistance, that is either or for supportive housing. So you either do 811 or rental assistance, correct?
Correct.
Can I ask a quick question? What, did either of you provide feedback on the second draft?
To be honest,
We
to be
did.
honest, I did not. I did extensive on the first, but not on the second.
Okay, but Jason, you did?
We did, but not in this section because it was pretty easy which direction we were going.
Got it. Okay. I just was curious because I'm wondering if there's potential that they will make a change on the final. It doesn't necessarily sound likely though. This will probably stay.
David was on a call, and so I think Jim was on it too the other day, where there was discussion about the zip codes. And I think Ruby even said that she was going to look at that before they put the final draft out. So I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but that is something that they're paying attention to.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, the city did submit a letter explicitly asking that it's called underserved areas. And so we did make a comment about 85705 and 85701 and strongly encourage them if they're going to pick geographic, recognizing why they included those. They haven't received projects in a while, but stressing that the city has a real priority in the Thrive in the 05 area, and the city has a real transit-oriented development priority, and taking out 85701 and 05 is really counter to everything we're trying to do.
Yeah, the only problem with that is 05 has definitely gotten awards. I mean, my project is in 05. Alberata, is that in 05?
We're all over. That's scattered site.
We're
We're
over,
in
but I mean, the big
01
one.
and 05. We're in both of them.
So, yeah, so 01 and 05 have actually been served pretty well by the credit program over the last few years. So
let's, I think we need to keep this conversation focused on what we can do from a city perspective to kind of give ourselves a leg up on the rest of the state. And so this rental assistance one kind of sticks out. So if we don't do the 811, if 30% or more of the units get rental assistance, that's also worth 30 points.
Yep.
let me throw out something about rental assistance. The city has been great about project-based vouchers. I mean, the two projects I've gotten credits for in the last couple of years both have project-based vouchers under the RFP. And the problem is, and I don't know if this is a HUD rule or not, and company, you will know better than I do. Unless you're doing special needs, you can only get 25% of a project's unit with project-based vouchers. And I think that is a HUD rule. You can get up to 40% if you do special needs. So to get 30% of the units and to max out those 30 points, the project would have to have special needs, at least some special needs.
And the strategic plan that you had kind of outlined last week, I think one of the things you'd said was that there would be potentially 100 project-based vouchers available. Is that accurate?
And I'll say, one is, David, you're not going to hurt my feelings by anything. In terms of, don't hesitate to really ask us what you all want. Can't promise you anything, but don't be shy. What we are currently thinking, based on the cap of project-based vouchers, we are currently looking at giving away 50 a year for the next 5 years. But that number is flexible, and I shouldn't say it's flexible. It is not a fixed, hard and fast, but that is what our current thinking is based on our cap. And so all of that being said, we want to try to maximize LIHTC awards in Tucson. So if there are things we can do, I think that seeing this section, that I would say we wouldn't want to give more than 15%, 30%, depending on in terms of trying to max out points, but thinking of how we can support you all. Sure. One of the other things we did say in our letter, for what it's worth, is by putting this many points on the cities, then you're just continuing to ensure the cities that receive more federal funding are going to get more projects, and regardless of the need. And so we keep making our case, but I understand they're trying to think about leverage and commitments, but it makes it hard because we have, in terms of home funding, we're really limited in how much we have.
Okay. So this is one area though, where, if you had 50 and you could potentially spread those out across 2 projects, that would total 150 units total if there were 30% of the units in each.
But isn't,
So if there are 2 75 unit projects that each could get 30% of the units, that would be 25, is my math right? 25 units per project. Maybe off a little bit, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah, didn't David just say that you couldn't put more than 25%? Project
Unless
based
Unless it's special needs.
unless it's special needs, so,
Then you can do 40%.
I mean, we always include some type of supportive services and priority populations in ours, so it's not something that would negatively affect this, but if you didn't have special needs, then the math wouldn't work out for you.
Then you do the 811.
Yeah, you just check the other box. Yeah. I mean, I think where the city really can make a difference is as you get to the next section of the local gap financing. I mean, I think that's where the city is going to basically be determining winners and losers.
I do want to go to that section, but Jim, while you're on this section, I do have a question on it. It talks about a defined geographic area adopted plan, and thinking through, I'm curious to see how flexible and what that means, because thinking this is where I want to try to help you all in our housing affordability plan. If we map out, we have our neighborhood vulnerability index, for instance, like if we include some sort of geographic, these are areas in Tucson that we want to prioritize affordable housing. I don't know if that could help or not help, but just thinking out loud, how do we, there's not that many parts that have a formalized adopted plan.
I don't know the
Well,
answer.
I think choice neighborhoods, for example, qualifies.
Yeah.
Interesting if the infill district does or not. That's something we'd need to look at. I mean, for example, you have to look at making specific investments in housing, non-housing infrastructure beyond developing proposed property. I don't know if the infill district ordinance does that or not. It simply says, here's what you're allowed to do in this district. I'm not sure it specifically contains other provisions that would qualify here for. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact of the matter is, to qualify under this section, it has to be a specified geographic area. And I don't think it could be all 232 square miles of the city of Tucson. So,
I'm thinking one of our policy initiatives is to think about providing affordable housing in areas of opportunity. And we are creating a quantitative way to show there's some duplication with the QAP in terms of access to things like healthcare facilities, et cetera. But part of that is really thinking about our housing segregation challenges in Tucson. And so thinking about deconcentrating poverty, deconcentrating communities of color, we could map that out as part of this, and it's going to be adopted by mayor and council. I have no idea if that would satisfy this or not, but just thinking about the greater good. And I'll shush. Shay, your chair, jump in.
Yeah, I was just saying, I feel like it's a much larger, broader topic that I hope somehow gets included in the the plan you're working on, Anne, because I also see it as, you know, there are other plans that are happening right now. Like I'm thinking of the rapid bus transit line as well, and how a big part of that will be, you know, having transit oriented development. Like to me, those corridors jump off the top of my mind right away as priority areas. But beyond that, I think that for me, it's a similar goal of wanting to see more, you know, more of a mix everywhere. You know, and I think actually the hardest projects to pull off are going to be the ones in the areas of higher opportunity where real estate is just a lot more expensive. So, you know, I don't know how you make those projects happen.
Yeah, well, one issue that you need to consider also, and this is a sort of contrary, that the revitalization area is, Jason, I'm not looking at it right. Oh, there, okay, there we go. You get 15, or I guess you get 10 points if you're in a community revitalization area, and you get an additional 5 points if it's a qualified census tract. Well, the qualified census tract is by definition going to be a low income area. So if you're trying to do deconcentration, if you're trying to develop in more upper income areas that have been resistant to affordable housing, you're not going to get anything here because you're not going to get the full 15 points because you're not in a QCT.
Yeah. Okay, any other thoughts or comments on the CRP?
Yeah, I would just say that these are always areas where you make the state tell you it doesn't qualify. I know that we've always included the city's plans, even scoring or unscoring categories that we're trying to initiate affordable housing. And I do know that the IID ordinance does have language in there specific to affordable housing. When we did West Point, we called on that language often. So I don't know how much more you could do at this point, because you'd have to have it adopted by mayor and council, and there can't be a principal and blah, 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 blah. The problem with stuff like this is I don't even think this was in the first version, was it? Didn't they have some other
Actually, it was.
calculation? Was it? Was this in the first version?
It was in the first draft. I mean, not necessarily these exact language, but there was definitely a CRP.
They had that scoring matrix that you would take the totals and you would add them up. And
Well, that was the location amenity. That was the cockamamie location amenity scoring. There was still a CRP, a separate CRP.
in QCTs and DDAs have always been incentive areas, and they're always going to be where they want you to put it. So, I mean, those aren't going anywhere.
But you only get QCT points if you're in a CRP under this QAP. If you're not in a community revitalization area, and but you are in a QCT, you get nothing. It's screwy.
Oh, because it's an additional 5 points.
It's an additional 5 points.
If it's in a QCT that's not in a community revitalization area, you don't get 5 points.
You don't even get the 30% basis boost because they're doing the 30% basis boost for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
So being in a QCT in Arizona for the next 2 years is going to do you no good unless you're in a community revitalization plan area.
Which, if you're going to be, I mean, which lends it to the 01 and 05 and choice neighborhood and IID. I mean, those are the corridors you're going to need to do it in if you want the full points.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to figure. I am actually looking at a project, or at least negotiating potential site control on the project that is in one of the good zip codes, but it's not in the CRP. But that's 10 points. So.
Okay, should we continue?
So one more thing on this. Shay's comment about the transit-oriented development plans. I wonder, it may or may not help, but Mayor and Council, if all goes well, will be adopting our housing affordability plan well before you'll be submitting your applications this year. And so I wonder if it's as simple as this year saying, you know, we have our Thrive in the O5 area, we have the Sunshine Mile in terms of just thinking about mapping out areas. We have the Grant Road overlay, the transit-oriented development areas that already have overlays saying that that's a priority area. So it's at least something else that would be included for that north-south TOD. All of that being said, you probably already know your sites and they might not fall into any of that.
Yeah. Okay.
The community Wi-Fi one, I mean, hopefully you all know that we do have the community wireless program that you can see maps of where the community wireless covers, and that you should be able to get points with that.
Okay. Where are those maps? Can you post? Is there a link we can post?
Yeah, I'll make sure you get them. Allison, do you mind trying to see if you can take a look now and or we can send them out after?
Yep, I'll look right now.
Okay. So 7, I think, is kind of the big one, right?
Yep.
This is where perversely Tucson's going to get hurt, because in my experience, Tucson's been a lot more generous than Phoenix in terms of home funds in particular. I mean, maybe I've just been very lucky, but HCD's been great about putting lots and lots and lots of money into projects that you think are worth doing. Phoenix has had lower caps, has capped how much they're putting in. And if it's only, and I think it's $1 million cap for the city of Phoenix home. So now they can do more projects and get more bang for their buck. So we're actually going to get hurt by this, I think.
And David, I will say, I think the days of HCD being, we had a huge home surplus we had to spend. And so the reality is the days of us giving more than you know, 500,000 is unlikely given just given how much we have per year. But that's one question I have on this is,
I gotta go cry. I gotta go somewhere.
I'm sorry, David. I will always be honest with you all. The one question I have here is, does this mean you get 15 points if we give you 500,000, if it's a $500,000 loan? Is there any scaling there at all? Okay.
No.
Nope.
Up or down, black or white?
Marianne?
Hi, guys. So I just made a suggestion last week to HUD that they include Federal Home Loan Bank as a local funding source, because the local banks sponsor it and Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco serves our region, and agreed. And so it's now in the QAP that's scheduled to come out on Friday.
In this category?
For local gap financing, yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Good, I guess.
Okay. So this 5 points here is if there's a home loan award or some other thing that gives the 500,000. So you get you get up to 10 points for this. So it's 5 points if it's historic, 5 points if it's a land lease, 5 points if it's an RFP process.
Yeah, but I think Jim, that final category of other, I think you can make an argument that's a city's impact fee waiver may qualify for affordable projects. you can make an argument for it.
Okay,
I don't know if you'd win, but you could certainly make an argument for those 5 points in the other category.
how much are impact fees these days? I don't necessarily see that. Is there a per unit?
They're outrageous if you're paying on the street.
But what is it? Is there a per unit like average that you know of?
What were our impact fees on Gateway? What was that? I think on Gateway, they would have been over $100,000. Yeah. I know when we did West Point, it was close to $200,000.
How many units was that?
It was 50 down. It was 50 units downtown, and we got the full waiver. That was back 4 or 5 years ago. I also know that when we did the impact fee, we got the impact fee waivers on Sunnyside Point. It was a full impact fee waiver for impact fees on those houses. I think it was close to $6,000 a unit.
Interesting. Marcos?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, add to Jason's comment on the fees, the impact fee waivers. The city actually has to pay general fund money to cover those fees. So I'm pretty sure that you can make an argument to get those points. State law changed a few years ago, and in order for cities and counties to provide impact fee waivers, we have to pay for them out of our general fund budget. So the city actually budgets money every year to cover those based on their history of granting those waivers. So, and one of the issues with the impact fee waivers, though, even when you get them, is the timing. The current way that they're being administered, you have to give mayor and council approval. So if you're geared up and ready to pull a permit, like we were ready on Gateway to pull our permit, and we applied for our impact fee waiver, we actually had to pay the full impact fee, and then we had to go through the reimbursement process, which is still in process for the impact fee portion of the impact fee waiver portion of our impact fees. It's not ideal. That's like how much? That's like $77,000 right now of reimbursement that we're waiting on from the city.
So Jason, are you saying it would be more help, like if you would need a letter prior to submitting your application, like a sort of pre-award, just to make sure?
You don't even know what the impact fees are until you actually get the
right,
or the actual calculation. So you really don't know what the calculation is, and the calculation now public-private calculation. So you don't get the full. When it was the full impact fee, it was easy. You had a line item that said impact fee, and you didn't pay it. Now there's a portion of it, and the approval process goes through mayor and council. So it, like this summer, they skipped a couple meetings, and so we ended up not even getting approved until August. Even though it was tentatively approved before we even pulled the permit. And the reimbursement process through the city has been cumbersome. We still don't have the check.
We're working on that, but that's good feedback for sure.
Yeah.
Dave?
And this is a point I've made in various meetings before. At least the last time I read the city's policy on impact fee waivers, it only applies to nonprofit developers. And for those of us in the not-for-profit sector, the housing is going to be the same. The rent targeting is going to be the same. We'd like to get those fee waivers too, so we could include them as our additional city funding support.
You guys are the evil rich developers, David, and we are the.
Oh, no, we're the good rich developers.
We are the benevolent.
We're the good rich.
You're the benevolent developers.
The benevolent rich developers wouldn't be in this call. We're the good rich developers.
David, we have it in our plan to at least explore expanding it. I will say I've at least, because of what Marcos just said, I at least heard from one council member that they don't want any sort of expansion because the city will have to cover it. That said, times are changing. Affordable housing is a priority. You know, we can certainly try.
I mean, I think the focus should be on the affordability of the housing, not the legal status of the developer.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it, for sure.
Marianne, did you still have a comment, or is that left over? I think that's probably a leftover comment. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on the QAP?
So you all are incredibly experienced at this. I'm curious if you scroll up slightly. Yeah, the land lease. I'm curious thoughts on that. Sarah, you passed it. It was yeah, it was the last one in that local government category.
The MLK is a land lease. When we put that together, that was if I recall correctly, it was a 75-year lease from the city to the partnership.
Yeah, the Marist College was also a land lease, but that was a land lease from the church. Shay?
Yeah, this is what I'm also interested in because, again, because the city's supply of land is so limited, and you know, I'm curious to hear from you all in the room how much more of a burden it adds to do a land lease structure like this if you were to do something like a partnership, you know, with the community land trust or with the city where you're just leasing the land. Is that an excessive burden, and is that something that for me personally, I'm interested in long-term affordability, and this is one way I see that at least the land itself could revert back to the city or to whatever nonprofit entity you know, is in place.
I think a land lease is fine, as long as you know, as long as it's meets the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code. It's a great way to proceed. It reduces the land cost considerably. I don't know. Other developers in the room, what do you folks think?
My question would be, how does the city determine who they're going to lease the land to?
Newport.
That's the $16.5 million question, or in David's case, the $24 million question.
I apologize, guys. I'm going to have to drop off here in a few minutes. I've got something I've got to take care of. So I apologize. I'm going to drop off here in a few. So Shay, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Okay, well, thank you. Was there any other input from anyone? I'm curious.
I think, you know, Ann and I have talked about this a couple times, and we've gone through it a few times. I think what she and the city are doing right now is going to be good. You know, the biggest issue, and actually the reason I got involved in this commission to begin with, is I've just felt like Tucson's not gotten its fair share of affordable housing awards when you compare to Phoenix and Maricopa County. And so the fact that we're all here having this conversation together collaboratively, I think is a great step. And I think the housing strategy plan that the city's putting together is also going to help. So you know, I think this is great. And I appreciate, Ann, you guys and you and the rest, and Liz and everybody else in the housing department participating and being open to these types of conversations. I think it's gonna help all of us in the long run. So that's my cheerleader speech. I'm gonna drop off.
All right, thanks, Jim. I kind of want to end the QAP discussion as well here, because unless anyone else had any did we go through all the items?
I'll just say, don't hesitate to reach out if there are things you think the city can do to make your applications more competitive.
Okay, if there's no further comments on that portion, I guess we can move to the next agenda item, which is the input on the affordable housing strategy. So Anne, do you want to pick up here?
Yeah, and I won't take up that much time. One thing I do want to acknowledge that I know the city has been asking a lot lately in terms of getting your all's input. So please know we recognize that. Between last week's stakeholder session and then the meeting with the mayor's office, I was like, oh, we're asking a lot of developers right now. So did want to just give a couple updates, and I'll save the full-fledged input for the meeting tomorrow, because I do think we really want to make sure the full commission has the update overall on the housing affordability strategy. I am putting in the chat the website. So we presented to the developer stakeholder session, to a public meeting Tuesday evening, and then an in-person meeting on Wednesday. And that presentation that we presented is now available online to view. And there's a comment box, and then the public meeting is also available on that website. And so Jim did specifically, well, I'll bring this up quickly. I'll show you all where we're at. You see the website? Okay, so if you go to the website, this will be we're going to continue to update this. Our current plan is to take this as a draft to mayor and council on November 23rd. So our thinking is we get feedback on the draft at that point, and then really will hope to get adoption sometime either December, January timeframe. And so when you go to this website, open draft plan, this is the link to the presentation, more or less, that I gave before. We're making some updates day by day. Not going to go through the whole plan, but Jim specifically asked that for this meeting, I share the results of the poll that we did at the developer stakeholder session. And so wanted to specifically with you all talk about these update zoning regulations to encourage affordable housing, short-term, medium-term, ongoing, sort of trying to be pretty specific in things that we think we can achieve in the next 5 years. And then this being the facilitating development by reducing costs and through innovation. Streamline development review process for affordable housing projects, evaluate expansion of the affordable housing impact fee program, as we mentioned, David, and a couple other things. I'm going to switch over. So you all know in terms of what the developers stakeholder, we asked you all that attended to participate in a poll. And here are the results of that poll that, zoning flexibility, what came out, one of the biggest, very useful, and then expanding the impact fee program was another one. And so we're thinking through that as part of the plan. We do anything that's identified as a short-term goal, we do plan on creating what we're calling an action plan for, and kind of itemizing out timelines, funding source, and really tracking what we put in here so that people hopefully see we are making progress in achieving these actions that are laid out. But yeah, we are all ears right now for input on all of these things, a summary, and Allison, feel free to jump in here too. I'd say by and large, we had some positive feedback. There were a few specific pieces of information that people felt like really needed to be included or changed, and we've done that. Betty, one thing I'll say, the data section now, you know, you and a few other gave feedback to try to include some Pima County data. We really did try to expand that data section and include more, where you can view a lot of the data either by the city or the county or both. And so, yeah, we're plowing forward. Tomorrow at the full commission meeting, I do plan on walking through and hopefully really getting feedback from the commission on that. But curious if anyone has any questions or thoughts or concerns.
So those things that look like they were highly rated by the developers look like they're things the neighborhoods are really gonna like too, right?
Like more additional density and height, that one?
Yeah, those ones.
As long as I could put an ADU in my backyard. Kidding. Sorry, too soon.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
The entire city is zoned R3 and C3. That's it. They'll love that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where trying to be mindful of balancing interests, and so part of what we're doing here is talking a lot about the transit corridors and being a place where density really does make sense.
Yeah, that hasn't worked so well either.
I guess it's still some Sunshine Mile scars. Anyone?
Yeah. Bingo.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole thing here, is in trying to get input from a wide group of stakeholders. But the reality is, when you look at the data on the housing numbers, it's incredible how much housing costs have gone up and what that means. And so needing to think through how to make more units happen sooner than later.
That's certainly our concern about older adult housing, or housing for older adults, so.
I guess the only thing I would add is that currently the barrier that we're going to be facing is also in labor shortages in actual development. And so I wonder, a lot of what's been talked about is like the zoning about these other aspects, but then when it goes to when we try and go to build, we're not going to have opportunity there. So I think that would just be something that maybe needs to also be considered as part of that process, or additional trades programs or things that could be funded in relationship to helping support that continued growth. Speaking as someone that's getting their bids back and being very burned right now.
Yeah, I keep thinking about that as well, Megan. I've also sit on the Tucson Industrial Development Authority, and that's part of, to me, what I think the city could be investing in as far as our economic plan and our industrial development is housing, and even some of these innovative strategies that have been brought up, like 3D printing. Well, those things take forever to be affordable because they take so long for the industry to adopt them. So whatever we can do to support these industries growing and emerging and getting off the ground, I think that's the other side of it, as well as prefabrication, like even just ideas that are simpler. I personally think Tucson's like several decades away from anything like 3D printing going mainstream, but something that's easier would be like, prefabricating wood panels. That could happen here in Tucson, right? Like there's some easier things that could happen and that could create jobs and could create better pipelines, I think about all the trades programs that used to be in Southside schools that are all gone now, getting kids into pipelines with good jobs, I don't know. That's something I'm interested in working on, but it seems kind of beyond the scope of this group.
So I will say, I love looking at the synergies and opportunities. And so one thing that this conversation really makes me think of is this pot of funding that, this is the money in the state and local fiscal recovery funding for this next year that's going towards housing. And I anticipate that I'm going to try to make it slightly bigger. I anticipate that some of these funding pots will be more than 1 year. I anticipate that they'll be at least 3 years. And so I bring this up because I think this conversation is important in that this is the funding for housing. There is also funding for things like workforce development and arts and culture and a lot of other things that I think could be tied in here. And so I start to get really excited about opportunities of somebody submitting an application saying, I want to build 10 older adult homes, but I want to partner with Pima Community College, and as part of their workforce development, build in a trades program as part of that. And technically you could then, from my understanding, and we haven't seen the full rules yet, but you could apply for both pots of money for a really cool project. And so that's where thinking through this state and local fiscal recovery money is I feel like a once in a lifetime opportunity, and looking at how much money is going to be available for community partners to try to do some really cool stuff. And so, yeah, okay, off my soapbox now, but.
Awesome, thank you, Anne, that's really helpful. The only other thing I keep thinking about too is if there's some way to have an overlay that would go over the entire city that would be about this suite of affordable incentive tools, and if it could be accessible to everyone, because right, we need affordable housing everywhere. But if there is a way that, and of course, like excluding maybe certain neighborhoods that we know are going to be really resistant, but I think that there's, throughout the rest of the city, there are some areas that I just feel like a broad overlay like this could work, where you could, be given all this, basically be given the potential to achieve your maximum lot coverage, which right now you're never really ever able to achieve your maximum lot coverage with all the setbacks and all the other, requirements that are in place. And I think that's frustrating for a lot of people at every scale, of development. And so, yeah, I keep wondering if there's some way this could be crafted in, and then hopefully pulling from, the community interest and support of, of affordable housing, if there's some way, some kind of bigger move that could be made.
And so Shay, I put in the chat the Austin's citywide affordable housing density bonus program. And it's pretty cool to see how they've done it. That's tiered. So depending on the affordability terms and what it looks like, you get some incentives. But if you're looking at extremely low income and long affordability terms, there's quite a bit of really cool incentives. And so I don't know what the political likelihood of something like this is, but I think it's really cool to think about. And I think the commission could really, I think, be helpful in trying to make something like that happen.
Yeah, that looks awesome. That's exactly, well, and I keep thinking too of who did it locally or more locally was Flagstaff. The city of Flagstaff put together a similar, kind of document that was citywide, and, gives a bunch of you know, pretty easy to understand and pretty meaningful, you know, mostly related to zoning, you know, incentives for affordable housing.
One thing too, in terms of our plan, in terms of the affordability strategy, feel free to say, hey, this is pretty general. The city could be more specific about this action. So I think in particular, some feedback, understandably, of folks has been that really wanting to focus more on incremental development and missing middle housing. And so if there are specific strategies that aren't in the plan that you think we should be looking at, I think that's something that I want people to know yes, we need units, and so we need density. And I personally think along key areas, density could make a lot of sense, but I think that thinking about spreading it out and doing more middle missing housing. Sorry, long day. I have a sick puppy who's getting better at my feet. All right, and so tomorrow for sneak preview for commission members, we will, between Liz and I, will tag team and really hope to get some feedback and hopefully some positive support to take to council on November 23rd.
Yeah, I just noted too, when I briefly read through that link you sent, that it was paired with a $250 million bond, housing bond as well.
And so Shay, the story on that, and I actually had to limit my wording on the affordability. One of them is about increasing funding revenue. And I had an item. So how they got that was because they paired it with a transit bond. So the transit bond was something in the ballpark of, it was at least 1.4 billion. And as part of that, they recognized, and I think it was really important, that anti-displacement measures are key for thinking about the success of this transit bond. And so they included a bunch of money for anti-displacement measures, and this is one of the things that is included with that. So
yeah, that's awesome. It's totally thought through, and I hope we can achieve something. Because we also have several of our own RTA projects. You know, again, the bus rapid transit line happening that's going to cut right through the south side and the city of South Tucson. And yeah, I hope some of these ideas can be replicated.
Yeah. Cool. That's all I have on this.
Okay, I think that was all of our items. Let me go through the agenda. The last one is setting our next date and meeting time. So we're gonna try to move these meetings right to the, I can't remember now what day we wanted to move them to. I think it was the 3rd. No, we have our CEHD, so yeah, I think we settled on the 3rd, or no, the 3rd Wednesday, or was it of every month? Was
that sounds right to me. And speaking of, I owe you all minutes from the first one. I'll give minutes for the first meeting, and this meeting I'll get them to you to adopt at the next one.
So that would put us at 1, 2, 3, December 15th. Does that seem like it'll work with the holidays? Right before the holidays, everyone takes off. Yeah. Okay. So let's set the next meeting time for this 4 p.m. December 15th for the subcommittee. Yeah, because having these back to back for me is really tough. I'd prefer, to have them more spread out. And the next thing would be agenda items. Does anyone have any specific items they'd like to put on that agenda? I think someone had wanted to put on short-term rental discussion as a, I don't remember who, but as an item to table. I don't know if we can get someone from the housing advocates out of Phoenix. They came and spoke with us last. I'm blanking on their name right now. Is the Arizona Housing? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? That
Housing Coalition?
yes, the Housing Coalition. I'm wondering if maybe they could come give us an update. I don't know. They have a better sense of what's happening at the state legislature as far as, initiatives, but
It might be worth waiting on that until the legislature goes back in session.
okay.
Well, I guess I would say that it's often better to do that before session starts, so you know what you're ready for. It's going to be a very unpleasant session, by the way, just to be the eternal optimist I am.
As my people say every year at Passover, why is this night different from any other night?
Well, I would say 6 or 8 new legislators in mid-session is going to be why, but this year, but anyway.
What was there any other agenda items? I'm guessing, Anne, do you think we'll be diving more into the affordable housing strategy or?
Yeah, we'll see how the 23rd goes, but I think that having this group really help us with some of those more specific details would be really helpful.
Okay, I don't know if it's too soon also or when the timing, I mean, part of why I was on this commission as well was because I wanted to start thinking about how we get a bond measure passed in the city, but maybe it's not the time either. Maybe that's the next year thing, but I don't know. Anne, what are folks' thoughts on that?
Actually Marcos, it looks like, has more experience with bonds.
Well, I've heard from 2 of our former county housing commissioners, representing the home builders and manufactured housing. Both David Godlewski and Ken Anderson have reached out saying that they've been in communication with their respective industry members, and they seem to think that there's interest, at least from their industry, to support this measure to provide a boost. And but the flip side of the coin is, will the voters be willing to approve something like that? And so, checking with leadership here at the county, I think our county administrator's office seems to think that their voters will not have an appetite to support a bond measure of this sort. But I don't know. I think and I would agree, unless there is a advertising marketing effort that is substantial, that can help inform voters and persuade them, that this is the right time and this is something that could provide a boost for our housing market and possibly alleviate, the problem with rising prices. So, it's a touchy subject whenever you have to go to the voters, and but I think it's something that's possible if we get support. And we keep going back to Austin, and I know that when they've been successful in these measures, they had a $10 million, $10,000 donation from the local realtors that paid for a marketing campaign. that helped get the support of the voters. And the first time they tried it, they failed, of course, and then they went back to the drawing board. And with that type of marketing support, and support, from the industry, I think that it could be successful, but it might take time. And then there's also, timing with regards to the general election, because, I don't know about the city, but I've been told that the county can only put these on the ballot in November. And I don't know and so that provides, additional consideration. You don't want to do it in a general presidential election, but, in an off year, you have a better chance, like a midterm election, just because of the turnout. But I'll leave it at that. But, I agree. I think that it should be something that we should start building support for, or at least seeing if there's wider support. And I mentioned, that I think there's already support from the home builders and manufactured housing.
Yeah, I feel like there would be support in this. I mean, it seems like there's support politically right now at the city level. Yeah, but I don't have a sense of the county. But I agree. I think that with the right messaging, that's really interesting that they that the realtors ended up supporting the marketing. That's also really brilliant strategy. But yeah, but I'd like to start talking about it and figuring out if we can bring in the right partners and the right people who would, maybe be able to move, help start to put a plan together, at least of, okay, like you're saying, Marcos, when is the right year to really think about targeting something like this, and then, working backwards from there.
I say, why not? I say, let's do it. And I also think it's a brilliant idea to add industry leaders to help, lobby for that. I don't think they're going to have a problem with that, especially here with all the issues that they're also having with their income being affected. So it could help it, I feel, in some people that care to do community parts in real estate. But I think it's a great idea. I'll back anything on that.
Okay, well, we're almost, I think, ready to adjourn. I don't mind adjourning early if anyone else does. Okay, so, all right, so do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Happily, I will move.
Second.
Thank you, Elle.
So heard. We'll see you later, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.